See markets morning call, 30th of September, 2025. Now, we basically had a small rally in the US equities overnight, as you know, there's an imminent shutdown coming in the US government. There's a lot of threats being thrown around, a lot of sort of false information. Republicans accusing Democrats of trying to fund healthcare for illegal immigrants, which is fairly ludicrous, but they're and the Democrats, naively thinking that the world will play fair with them, which is why they're usually these left-wing parties are can be quite useless when they're in government. Because the other sides do play dirty. So, but yeah, Nvidia drove the market largely higher. Yet again, that concentration of the major the major stocks in the index essentially drifting and having a massive effect. We've got pretty much every market bar the Nikkei in strong buy territory on every single indicator. But look, it was a small win realistically. That'd be all Nvidia just about. So would the S&P, the Dow, small win there. The Aussie market, despite there being some weakness in iron ore prices yesterday, seemed to head a fair bit higher. So CBA and CSL were the standouts there yesterday, and but with the real the real hot sector, the white hot sector, is the defence sector. So so we had Drone Shield up around about 15%, I believe. Electro-Optic Systems was trailing, probably still in double-digit returns there. This thematic's pretty damn solid. If you read any of my articles on Livewire on our website, or if you're looking to attend our webinar in the next in exactly a week from today, Tuesday, the 7th of October. So as you can see here, Nvidia up 2%. Everything else is largely just mixed, I've got to say. The grey squares just been largely unchanged. Oil was down just a little bit. That dragged down the oil sector. There's not much to talk about really there. There wasn't really much in the corporate space either. Electronic Arts is going to be taken private. It's one of the big gaming companies in the US, and whilst people sort of chortle and what gaming, well, they're the biggest media releases in the world by a long way. They far surpass any of the movie releases from any of the major studios, and I think you've got demographics in the US where I think more than half of males aged between 18 and 35 are watching gaming rather than watching any sort of streaming service or TV. So I know those stats are quite high. Fun fact in the gaming space, the World Championship of Gaming, and I'm not entirely sure what that game is particularly. Too many kids to be spending hours gaming. Is higher prize money than the Super Bowl. It's something around the $60 or $70 million mark for the World Championship in gaming. So esports is a pretty big thing, and I think we'll only see it continue to get bigger and bigger over time. But yeah, look, like I said, nothing much to write home about in terms of that heat map overall. Carnival did report fairly well. Today we've got RBA. No one's expecting any movement from RBA today. The press conference will be the big show, I would imagine. We do have some manufacturing PMI in China, which could rescue that iron ore price, which seems to be drifting a little bit lower as well. Gold and silver prices, didn't want to bore you too much with that today with the headline, but as you can see, silver's still grinding higher. Copper actually was the big performer last night, up 3.37%. Platinum up another 2.5%, up 15 for the week, and looking, and then obviously you can see crude there down 3.9. I dare say around some form of peace talks, which I'm sure will inevitably fall over as they always do. But gold, new record highs above 3,800 in the spot, and Now everyone's starting to pile in and saying, "Oh, it's the most crowded trade. The precious metals. It's there's going to be a massive rug pull, etc., etc." Where the government shut down now. This is Polymarket, so it's one of the biggest one of the biggest market makers on crypto blockchain, essentially, that bets on just about anything, basically. Government shut down by October 1st, spiked really heavily in the last, the first half of the day session in the US. So probably about 6 or 7 hours old. So it could have changed since then. But yeah, 83% chance. And look, markets are looking forward to these payrolls numbers on Friday, and they're super key. These numbers, the economists are predicting 51,000 jobs added in September versus 22,000 only in August. Unemployment steady at 4.3, but we have had a history of negative revisions as well. But if lawmakers fail to pass the funding bill before Tuesday night, we may not get the payrolls numbers, which would be, quite a turn up for the books. I mean, this is the 15th partial closure since 1981 in the, for the government. A lot of them in recent times. A lot of it is just grandstanding. The Democrats have like a wafer thin amount of power because Trump owns, well, the Republicans own all the houses in the executive branch. But they do need Democrats' support for this spending bill. And yeah, look, it's very difficult to get to what the actual sticking point is, to be honest. Like they're talking all the inflammatory stuff, like illegal immigrants getting healthcare and all this crap. So, really digging down, Republicans are, they're trying to stand strong on their, the healthcare cuts, essentially. And Democrats are trying to get some of that back overall. So that seems to be the broad sticking point. But who knows? There could be a bunch of different things. The way that that Congress is just dysfunctional now. Every single year they make a new record for the lowest amount of bills passed. So they make a new low for inefficiency every single year. And yeah, you can, the only reliable thing over there is probably just to be disappointed. You can kind of understand why Trump's, often he's called a dictator, but you can probably understand the lack of any form of movement on policy over there. You can sort of understand why he's bypassing them, because nothing's been done for years. And we're not just talking, the Democrats do the same to the Republicans when they're, when they're in power, and vice versa. It's, the last time we had any form of fiscal responsibility was Bill Clinton when we ran a surplus. And Elon actually, as much as everyone's hating on Elon at the moment, brought up a pretty valid point that, Republicans now are essentially adopting Bill Clinton policies from back in the day. So this is how far we've all been dragged. And it used to be, government spending used to be about 3% of GDP. Now it's 23% of GDP. And it's essentially got to stop. They've got to stop giving tax breaks to, multinational companies at 14%, and then just basically transferring that, that tax break into debt. They've got massive infrastructure issues. So a government shutdown is not going to help. They don't pay their soldiers. They don't pay anyone, basically. And Trump's just threatening, basically, that if it does come into effect, he's just going to fire 300,000 people. So, it's a bit of a circus. Always is a circus. This is, it's got to be the fifth one I've had to cover, in equities in the last 5 years. And, there is always this last minute deal, but it does seem at the moment that they actually are going to shut down. So we may not have payrolls Friday. Is the major point that is driving gold and silver prices, because if you've got US dollars drifting lower. This is the worst year for a US dollar in decades. So we're really, these trades are short US dollar. When your reserve currency is dropping off the face of the earth, just about. But to those who say that the gold run is over, if you adjust the gold price for the US M2 money supply, we're nowhere near record highs, essentially. So they've printed so much money in the States, and they printed another $1 trillion in the last week, which is just like gobsmacking. Gold can run heaps still. This move here is really, gold, that's gold at 6,000 or 7,000, I believe, to get to actual record highs, taking into account money supply. So, and you could say the same. The stock market in relation to money supply is nowhere near as high. So, unless you've got these, wealth conserving assets or these stores of value in these real assets, and that's where I think that commodities are really going to make a comeback. With commodities versus the equities market, because of tech companies, and that's where the quick wins have been. Are at their smallest, their smallest weighting of total global equities that they've ever been in history. So people were going to want real things at some stage, and if that fresh $1 trillion that just got pumped into the market likely will go to the stock market, likely will cause more record highs. But in terms of real wealth, it's not really a new record high. So. Yeah, guys, and as per usual, you can sign up to our Security Super Cycle, investing in a new world order. We will. You can also register for our robotics and automation one that's in November as well, November the 4th. So that'll be. That will be our last 2 webinars for the year. These have changed a little bit here, but they're largely still up. I dare say they'd be up at least on average about 20% still. The copper miners particularly heading higher, so that should probably help the Aussie market today. Look out for that press conference around about 3:30 from the RBA on rates. It will be, it'll be interesting to see. You've got to be careful who you listen to. There are some disgraceful journalists that go to that thing and just that are just hunting for headlines. But there are some valid questions in there as well. You can sort of tell who to listen to and who not to listen to, but with common sense generally. But I think that'll be the main focus for our market today, and obviously that Chinese manufacturing data during the middle of the day as well. So have a great day, and I hope everything goes well for you guys. Like I said, keep an eye on those defense stocks and those precious metal stocks as well. There is a few things heating up in Russia, Ukraine. Russia's been breaching Polish and Baltic airspace quite a lot with drones, and then turning around and threatening that if one of them gets taken down, it'll start World War III. It's pretty white noise, this situation at the moment, but worth keeping an eye on, just in case things start to kick off there as well. Because, while we've got these sorts of, the Middle East sort of taking headlines and Trump rolling the National Guard into certain cities for crime and all sorts of things, there's a lot of distractions going on. But if that thing kicks off, we are going to have some serious issues across the board, and you'd be wanting to look at maybe oil, more precious metals, and maybe taking some profits or selling out of some of your portfolios. So just keep it in the back of your mind, not being alarmist in any way, shape or form. It's probably about a 1% chance of happening, but still worth monitoring, because I thought the same thing when he invaded Ukraine, a few years ago. So you just got to keep one eye on those major things that can potentially come out of left field. But again, have a great day, and we'll speak again tomorrow.